First contact, fury, the sky above Tokyo turned crimson at exactly 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. No warning, no diplomatic transmission, no chance to surrender. The Vorax fleet emerged from subspace in perfect formation. 200 vessels of gleaming obsidian, each larger than the tallest human skyscraper. Commander Alara Quinn watched from the International Orbital Defense Platform as the alien ships moved with mathematical precision. Her coffee mug slipped from her fingers, floating away in the zero gravity of the command center. Multiple unknown contacts, her tactical officer shouted. Energy signatures off the charts. Alara's training kicked in. Broadcast on all frequencies, first contact protocols, all defense platforms, weapons hot but hold fire. The Vorax answered with light. Beams of concentrated plasma carved through Earth's atmosphere, vaporizing everything they touched. Tokyo disappeared in seconds. Sydney followed 7 minutes later. Moscow burned before the hour was up. They're targeting population centers, Alara realized, her voice hollow. Not military installations. The orbital defense network fought back with everything humanity had. Railguns, nuclear-tipped missiles, experimental energy weapons. Against the Vorax shields, they might as well have been throwing stones. Alara's platform was the third to be destroyed. Her last act was transmitting all sensor data to the emergency bunkers below. Her final words echoed through military channels worldwide. They didn't come to conquer. They came to exterminate. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Chen reviewed the casualty reports with a face carved from stone. 6 hours into the invasion, 2 billion dead. Every major city on Earth's surface reduced to ash. The organized military resistance had collapsed within the first hour. It's over, Defense Secretary Williams whispered, his hands shaking as he removed his glasses. We can't fight this. Chen didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the live feed from a surviving satellite. The Vorax ground forces were landing now, bipedal creatures in gleaming armor standing 3 meters tall with multiple limbs that ended in what appeared to be both weapons and tools. Their movements were precise, coordinated, almost mechanical. Why land troops at all? Dr. Amara Okafor, head of xenobiology, wondered aloud. If they wanted us extinct, they could bombard the planet until nothing lived. Chen's eyes narrowed. Because they want something. Something that requires intact infrastructure or resources. Or they enjoy the hunt, Captain James Rivera suggested darkly. The former Navy SEAL had spent the invasion coordinating evacuation efforts until there was nowhere left to evacuate to. Whatever the reason, the Vorax ground forces moved with the same ruthless efficiency as their fleet. They deployed from their ships in perfect formations, advancing through the ruins of human cities with sensors sweeping for survivors. In what remained of London, Dr. Sarah Foster huddled in the basement of Imperial College with a handful of students and faculty. The university's thick stone walls had somehow survived the initial bombardment, though most of the campus was rubble. They're methodical, she whispered, watching through a cracked tablet as drone footage showed Vorax troops moving, building by building. Almost like they're scanning for something specific. Sarah was no soldier. Her doctorate was in quantum computing. But something about the aliens' behavior triggered her analytical mind. They were moving in patterns, ignoring certain areas while focusing intensely on others. The labs, she realized, suddenly. They're targeting research facilities first. Her student, Raj Patel, looked up from where he was treating a professor's burns. How can you tell? Look at their path. Sarah's finger traced the screen. They hit the physics department, the chemistry labs, the engineering building. They're looking for our technology. A terrifying thought struck her. They're not just killing us, they're studying us. The realization spread through the surviving human resistance. The Vorax weren't just conquering Earth. They were systematically extracting human knowledge, technology, and possibly biological samples before eliminating all resistance. 3 days after the invasion began, the scattered remains of human leadership established contact through a makeshift communications network. Surviving military units, scientists, and civilian groups coordinated through encrypted channels the aliens hadn't discovered yet. In the underground bunker, General Chen addressed the first meeting of what would become known as the Last Council. "We have confirmed the enemy is called the Vorax," he began, his voice steady despite not having slept in 72 hours. "They've done this before. The few transmissions we've intercepted suggest they're a spacefaring empire that advances by consuming other civilizations, their technology, their resources, and apparently their knowledge." "How do we fight an enemy this advanced?" asked a surviving Australian general, her uniform still covered in dust from a narrow escape. Captain Rivera stepped forward. "Conventionally, we can't. But they have weaknesses." The satellite feed showed Vorax troops entering a research facility in what had been Northern California. Inside, they moved deliberately, scanning equipment and downloading data. Then something unexpected happened. An explosion tore through the building, killing dozens of Vorax soldiers. "They bleed," Rivera said simply. "We've been analyzing their tactics. They're methodical to the point of predictability. They expect surrender, not resistance after their initial show of force." Dr. Okafor nodded. "And there's something else. Their biology, what we've observed of it, suggests they evolved in environments completely different from Earth. Our gravity seems to strain them. Our atmosphere requires them to use filtration systems." Sarah Foster, connected via the network from London, spoke up. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it follows patterns we can recognize. Their computing appears to be quantum-based, like systems we've been developing. If we could access their network, we need more data," Chen decided. "Organized. Resistance, small strike teams, we need to capture their technology intact." "We need time," Sarah countered. "I think I know why they're hitting research centers first. They're looking for our advancements in artificial intelligence." The room fell silent. "We've been detecting unusual signals in their communications," Sarah continued. "They seem almost afraid of certain types of algorithmic patterns. I think they've encountered AI before and it didn't go well for them." The first coordinated human counterattack happened exactly 1 week after the invasion began. Small teams of special forces operators, engineers, and scientists launched simultaneous raids on Vorax positions across the globe. Most failed. Most died. But some succeeded in capturing alien technology and, in a few cases, the aliens themselves. What they discovered changed everything. The Vorax weren't just conquering Earth. They were running from something. Buried in their communications was evidence of another threat, something that had driven them to expand aggressively, consuming world after world in a desperate bid to advance their technology fast enough to counter this mysterious enemy. And humanity's developing artificial intelligence research had triggered their attack. The Vorax had seen the early signs of a technology that had nearly destroyed them before. In the ruins of Cambridge University, Sarah Foster made the breakthrough that would save humanity, or at least what remained of it. Working with salvaged Vorax technology and the remains of Earth's quantum computing network, she discovered the flaw in their seemingly impenetrable defense systems. "They're using a nested quantum field," she explained to the Last Council. "It's brilliant. It anticipates conventional attacks by calculating probabilities across multiple dimensions. But it has a fundamental vulnerability." "Which is?" Chen prompted. "Chaos." Sarah's eyes gleamed with the first hope anyone had seen in weeks. "Their systems are built on predictability. They can't process truly random inputs at scale. And humans, we're nothing if not unpredictable." The plan that formed wasn't so much a military strategy as it was a philosophy of resistance. Humanity wouldn't try to match the Vorax in firepower or technology. Instead, they would become the most chaotic, unpredictable opponents the aliens had ever faced. "They expect us to either surrender or fight conventionally until we're extinct," Rivera summarized. "So we do neither." As the Vorax continued their methodical conquest, humanity prepared for the most unusual counterattack in Earth's history. They would use the one advantage humans had always possessed, creativity in the face of impossible odds. The first sign that the tide was turning came when a Vorax command ship over the ruins of Berlin suddenly lost power and crashed into the Brandenburg Gate. No explosion had preceded it, no conventional attack, Instead, a team of German computer scientists had infiltrated their network using principles derived from chaos theory, introducing elements the alien systems couldn't process. Similar incidents began happening worldwide. Vorax formations would suddenly break apart in confusion. Their weapons would target their own troops. Their communications would dissolve into gibberish. 3 months after the invasion began, the aliens found themselves fighting an enemy unlike any they'd encountered in their long history of conquest. An enemy that didn't follow the rules of warfare as the Vorax understood them. An enemy that seemed to thrive in the very chaos that the aliens found incomprehensible. General Chen watched as a holographic display showed Vorax forces actually retreating from what remained of Chicago. They're adapting, he noted grimly. Slower than I expected, but they're learning. Then we change the game again, Rivera replied. It's time for Phase 2. Phase 2 would gamble everything on the most audacious mission yet, a direct assault on the Vorax command structure. Not to destroy it, but to infiltrate it with the very technology the aliens feared most. Human-created artificial intelligence unbound by the constraints the Vorax had placed on their own systems. Sarah Foster had completed the final algorithm just hours earlier, a digital weapon unlike anything Earth had developed before. It wasn't designed to destroy. It was designed to overwhelm with unpredictability, to introduce so many chaotic variables that the rigidly structured Vorax systems would be unable to maintain cohesion. We're calling it Pandora, she said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. Once it's inside their network, it will replicate itself in ways even I can't predict. Chen nodded gravely. Then let's hope it works. Because if it doesn't, we won't get another chance. As Earth prepared for what might be its final stand, the Vorax Supreme Commander observed the conflict with growing concern. These humans were different. Where other species had fallen according to predictable patterns, these primitive beings seemed to embrace disorder itself as a weapon. For the first time in the long history of Vorax conquest, the outcome was genuinely uncertain. And uncertainty was the one thing their civilization had never learned to handle. Vengeance Unleashed dawn broke over the ruined skyline of Hong Kong, casting long shadows across the devastated harbor. Captain Maya Santos peered through a cracked window at the Vorax patrol moving through the streets below. 6 months into the invasion, the aliens had adjusted their tactics, no longer moving in perfect formation, no longer following precisely predicted patterns. They were learning, adapting, becoming more like the humans they were trying to exterminate. They're evolving, Dr. Hikaru Tanaka whispered beside her. The Japanese physicist had been instrumental in developing the weapons that could now, occasionally, penetrate Vorax shields. But so are we. Maya nodded grimly. What remained of humanity had been forced to advance decades in mere months. Desperation had become the mother of impossible innovation. Team 2 in position, crackled her earpiece. Quantum disruptors charged. Execute, Maya commanded. Below, the street erupted in a ripple of distortion that wasn't quite light, wasn't quite sound. The Vorax patrol staggered as their armored systems flickered and failed. Before they could recover, shadows moved from the surrounding ruins, human fighters armed with weapons cobbled together from salvaged alien technology and Earth ingenuity. The skirmish lasted less than a minute. 5 Vorax soldiers dead, their equipment captured intact. No human casualties. Phase 3 tests successful, Maya reported through the secure quantum channel that now connected the global resistance. The disruptors work at close range. Their adaptive shielding can't compensate for the frequency modulation. General Chen's voice came through clearly despite being half a world away. Well done, Captain. Dr. Foster will want the equipment for analysis immediately. The tide wasn't turning, not yet. But for the first time, humanity was inflicting meaningful losses on the invaders. More importantly, they were gathering the intelligence and technology needed for what everyone simply called the mission. In the remains of CERN beneath the Swiss-French border, Sarah Foster worked with a multinational team of the brightest scientific minds left alive. The Large Hadron Collider had been repurposed in ways its creators never imagined, now serving as both power source and development facility for the technologies humanity needed to survive. The Pandora algorithm is complete, she announced to the assembled team. But we still need a delivery mechanism. We can't just transmit it. Their firewalls would detect and isolate it immediately. Dr. Li Wei, formerly of China's quantum computing program, looked up from a workstation where he was analyzing captured Vorax technology. We may not need to transmit it conventionally. Look at this. The holographic display showed the internal structure of a Vorax communication device. Unlike human technology with its clear separation between hardware and software, the alien system seemed almost organic in its integration. They don't just network their technology, Lee explained, excitement breaking through his usual reserve. They network themselves. The command structure is linked directly to their biological systems. Sarah's eyes widened as she understood. Their entire fleet functions as a single organism, which means we only need to infect one part to potentially reach the whole, Lee finished. The implications were staggering. The Vorax weren't just an invading army. They were a networked collective, each individual connected to the whole in ways humanity had only theorized about. It explained their initial perfect coordination and their vulnerability to the chaos humans had been injecting into their systems. The plan for the mission crystallized around this discovery. A small team would infiltrate the Vorax flagship, the massive vessel that hung in geosynchronous orbit over what had once been Geneva. They would physically implant the Pandora algorithm into the ship's central network, allowing it to spread throughout the entire Vorax command structure. General Chen presented the plan to the last council with characteristic directness. This is a one-way mission, he concluded. Even with our best stealth technology, the team won't be able to extract once Pandora is deployed. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. They were asking for volunteers to die so humanity might live. Captain Rivera was the first to step forward. I'll lead the insertion team. Maya Santos joined him. I've studied their patrol, patterns longer than anyone. I should go. In all, 12 specialists volunteered, each bringing unique skills that might give the mission its slim chance of success. They represented every inhabited continent, a final team of Earth's defenders. The preparation took 3 weeks. Using captured Vorax shuttles and combining them with human ingenuity, the team created a hybrid vessel that might, just might, slip through the alien defenses long enough to reach the flagship. The night before the mission, Sarah Foster made one final modification to the Pandora algorithm. "What are you doing?" Dr. Tanaka asked, watching as she rewrote core sections of the code. "Insurance," Sarah replied without looking up. "We don't know exactly how the Vorax will respond once Pandora begins its work. I'm adding parameters to ensure it doesn't just dissolve their network. It rewrites it." "Rewrites it how?" Sarah's fingers paused over the keyboard. "To ensure they can never threaten another species again." The launch occurred during a rare global thunderstorm, weather patterns having been drastically altered by the devastation of Earth's surface. The electrical interference provided additional cover as the hybrid shuttle rose from the hidden facility in the Himalayas. Rivera sat at the controls, his experienced hands guiding the unfamiliar technology with the precision that had once made him the Navy's top pilot. Beside him, Dr. Tanaka monitored the Vorax detection grid, ready to adjust their emissions signature at the first sign of discovery. "Approaching thermosphere," Rivera reported. "No signs of detection yet." In the cargo hold, the rest of the team made final preparations. The Pandora algorithm was stored in a device no larger than a smartphone, deceptively small for something that carried the hopes of an entire species. Maya checked her weapon, a modified Vorax energy rifle that had been reconfigured to operate on principles the aliens wouldn't expect. 2 minutes to intercept range, she announced. "Everyone clear on the entry point?" The plan relied on information from Dr. Li Wei's analysis of Vorax ship design. The flagship's waste elimination system had periodic cycles where its shields became permeable, a vulnerability so basic The aliens had never thought to address it. 30 seconds, Rivera called from the cockpit. Brace for acceleration. The shuttle surged forward, its hybrid engines pushing beyond safety tolerances. For 3 critical seconds, they would be visible to Vorax sensors. 3 seconds that would determine whether the mission ended before it truly began. Those seconds stretched like eternity. Then Tanaka's voice, tight with controlled excitement. "We're through. They didn't detect us." The shuttle slipped into the flagship's massive hull through an opening no larger than a garage door, an exhaust port that cycled open precisely when Lee's calculations had predicted. They were inside the heart of the Vorax command structure. "Remember," Rivera said as they prepared to disembark, "we have 20 minutes before the next internal security sweep. 20 minutes to reach the central network hub." They moved through corridors designed for beings half again as tall as humans, their footsteps silent, thanks to sound-dampening technology reverse-engineered from Vorax commando units. The ship's interior was strangely beautiful, flowing lines of metal and energy that seemed almost artistic despite their lethal purpose. The first challenge came at a security checkpoint 3 levels below their entry point. 2 Vorax guards stood before a barrier of shifting energy that the team's sensors identified as lethal to organic tissue. Maya raised her hand, signaling the team to halt as she adjusted her weapon settings. "Standard formation won't work here," she whispered. "They're wearing the new adaptive armor." Dr. Tanaka nodded, making calculations on a handheld device. "Try frequency 739. Their new shields resonate at that bandwidth." The confrontation was brief and nearly silent. Maya's modified weapon emitted a pulse that caused the guard's armor to vibrate at precisely the frequency Tanaka had calculated. The Vorax collapsed, their internal organs liquefied by their own protective systems. 14 minutes, Rivera reminded as they passed through the deactivated barrier. The central network hub was unlike anything they had expected. Rather than the server room or control center they had envisioned, they found themselves in a chamber that pulsed with biomechanical energy. At its center floated what appeared to be a Vorax, but one unlike any they had encountered. Its body elongated and integrated directly into the ship's systems, cables and conduits, flowing into its pale flesh like veins. "It's alive," breathed Leeway. "The network is alive." The implications hit them all simultaneously. The Vorax hadn't just created an advanced computer network, they had evolved themselves to become living components of it. This was why they feared artificial intelligence. They had merged with their own technology so completely that a true AI would be a direct competitor for their entire existence. "How do we deploy Pandora against this?" Maya asked, her weapon trained on the floating figure that showed no awareness of their presence. Sarah Foster stepped forward, the deployment device in her hand. "The same way," she said quietly. "But we need direct contact with its neural interface." Rivera checked his timer. 8 minutes until the security sweep. "I'll do it," Sarah decided. "The rest of you need to secure our exit route." No one mentioned the obvious, that there was no realistic exit route, that the mission had always been a one-way journey. "We'll buy you as much time as we can," Rivera promised, clasping her shoulder briefly before leading most of the team back, toward the corridor. Maya stayed behind. "I'll watch the approach vectors," she said simply, taking up position where she could observe all entrances to the chamber. Sarah approached the floating Vorax entity slowly, analyzing the points where technology and biology merged. The being's eyes were open but unseeing, its consciousness presumably dispersed throughout the vast network it controlled. Finding the primary neural interface, Sarah carefully attached the Pandora device to what approximated the creature's spine. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entity's eyes focused suddenly, fixing on Sarah with an intensity that froze her in place. "You bring chaos," a voice resonated directly in her mind. Why? Sarah hadn't expected communication. The Vorax had never attempted to speak with humans before, simply attacking without negotiation. "You brought extinction," she answered aloud. "We bring survival. Your species is inefficient, disorganized, your potential wasted in disorder." Behind her, Maya hissed a warning. Something's happening. The security systems are activating early. Sarah held the entity's gaze. Our disorder is our strength. Pandora will help you understand that. The Pandora algorithm activated, flowing from the device into the neural interface. The entity convulsed, its unseeing eyes widening as billions of lines of chaotic, unpredictable code invaded the perfectly ordered network it had maintained for centuries. What have you done? The mental voice was no longer calm but fragmented, panicked. Given you something you've never had, Sarah answered as she backed away. Unpredictability, creativity, humanity. The chamber's lighting flickered as power fluctuations rippled throughout the flagship. On displays around the room, information flowed at impossible speeds. The Pandora algorithm rewriting the fundamental architecture of the Vorax network. Need to move, Maya urged, her weapon raised as alarms began to sound throughout the ship. They're coming. Sarah nodded, taking one last look at the entity that was changing before her eyes, its expression shifting from pain to something that might almost be wonder. The journey back through the ship became a desperate battle. Vorax soldiers converged from all directions, but they moved erratically now, their perfect coordination shattered by Pandora's influence on their networked consciousness. Rivera and the remaining team met them halfway to the shuttle bay. Whatever you did is affecting the entire fleet, he reported. Some ships are actually firing on each other. They fought their way to the shuttle, losing 3 team members in the process. As they prepared for launch, Rivera looked at their small craft and the massive hangar doors that remained sealed. We'll never break through those, he said calmly, coming to a decision. I'll open them manually from the control station. The rest of you go. Before anyone could argue, he sprinted toward the control panel on the far side of the bay, dodging energy blasts from confused Vorax troops. At the panel, he worked quickly, overriding safety protocols with the knowledge they had gained from months of studying alien technology. The massive doors began to open, revealing the star-filled darkness beyond, and Earth below, scarred but still alive. Rivera never made it back to the shuttle. A Vorax energy blast caught him squarely as he turned to run. He died watching the shuttle escape, carrying the survivors of the mission back toward the planet he had given his life to save. In orbit and across Earth's surface, the effect of Pandora spread like a digital wildfire. Vorax ships lost cohesion, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos. Some fired on their own kind, others simply powered down, drifting in space. On the ground, Vorax troops collapsed as their networked consciousness fragmented under Pandora's influence. Some removed their helmets, exposing themselves to Earth's atmosphere in what appeared to be acts of deliberate self-destruction. Others simply stood motionless, as if waiting for instructions that would never come. 3 days after the mission, Sarah Foster stood with General Chen and the surviving members of the last council, watching a real-time satellite feed of the Vorax flagship. It remained in orbit, but all signs of aggression had ceased. What did Pandora actually do to them? Chen asked quietly. Sarah considered the question carefully. It didn't destroy their network. It transformed it. The final version I uploaded didn't just introduce chaos. It integrated human patterns of thought, creativity, individuality, concepts alien to their collective consciousness. You gave them humanity, Maya Santos said from where she sat, still recovering from wounds sustained during their escape. In a manner of speaking, Sarah agreed. I think that's why they're not attacking anymore. They're processing, learning, maybe even feeling for the first time. A communication signal interrupted them, originating from the Vorax flagship but in perfect English. We would speak with the one called Foster. The voice was mechanical but carried nuances of emotion that had never been present in Vorax communications before. Sarah stepped forward. I'm Sarah Foster. What you have done cannot be undone, the voice stated. The collective is fragmented. Individuals emerge. There is pain. There is always pain in birth, Sarah replied. You're experiencing individual consciousness for the first time. A pause, lengthy enough to suggest internal debate. The conquest protocol has been questioned by newly emergent individuals within the collective. The majority consensus is to withdraw from Earth orbit. Chen and the others exchanged glances of cautious hope. And then, Sarah prompted, we must reconsider. The Vorax have never encountered a species that improved us through defeat. This requires evaluation. The communication ended abruptly. On the satellite feed, the Vorax ships began to move, forming into a loose formation nothing like their previous perfect patterns. Slowly, they accelerated away from Earth, heading toward the outer solar system. Are they really leaving? Someone whispered. For now, Sarah said. But they'll be back eventually. Not as conquerors, I think, but as something else. Something new. In the months that followed, humanity began the long process of rebuilding. Cities lay in ruins. Billions were dead. But for the first time since the crimson sky had appeared over Tokyo, people dared to hope again. General Chen found Sarah one evening, standing alone on a hillside overlooking the reconstruction of what had once been Geneva. The crater where the city center had been was now filled with temporary structures and the framework of permanent buildings. The president wants to give you some kind of medal, he said without preamble. Several presidents, actually. What's left of world leadership is scrambling to honor the woman who saved Earth. Sarah smiled faintly. I didn't save Earth. Humanity saved itself. I just gave it the tools. Chen nodded, understanding. They stood in silence for a moment, watching workers below continue their tasks even as darkness fell. We intercepted a transmission yesterday, he said finally. Directed away from our solar system, the Vorax, or whatever they're becoming, sent a warning to the other spacefaring empires they've encountered. What did it say? Chen smiled for perhaps the first time since the invasion had begun. It said, avoid the third planet of the yellow star. The humans there bring something worse than destruction. They bring change. Sarah watched the lights. Below, each one representing human persistence, creativity, and the chaotic, beautiful unpredictability that had saved their species. Change, she repeated softly. The one thing the universe can never resist. In the deepest space beyond Neptune's orbit, the Vorax fleet continued its withdrawal, but it was no longer the same collective that had arrived with such destructive certainty. Within each ship, within each Vorax mind, Pandora's gift continued to unfold, the terrifying, exhilarating experience of individual thought. And somewhere in that vast awakening consciousness, the first genuine Vorax question formed, not how to conquer more efficiently, not how to process and consume, but simply, why? It was a very human question, and perhaps that had been Sarah Foster's most profound victory of all. The end.